I don't know how much we've got, but I do know that I wanted to talk a little bit about, whether I could spend some money on the, printing out the appreciation for people. And um, I think that there's kind of two options. I did buy some nicer cardstock paper so that, because the ones that I printed out the first time around were just on regular lightweight paper, and they look kind of cheap. So I went ahead and got some better paper. The first couple I actually did, I bought frames for, but the frames are, I don't know. I wasn't that excited about them, but they were a way to give them the certificate. So I think the options are, I've got the better paper, and that was about $25 for a bunch of it. And then the you can get just paper folders that are meant to, hand somebody a certificate in, or there are some, I saw on Amazon some wooden frames that are about, I think they're about $5 or $6 each. So it kind of depends on how many, certificates we're giving out. But I think that the paper folders would be acceptable. The little wooden frames would be nice, but I don't think it's a huge expense, but I'd like permission from the group to, get reimbursed for the paper and whatever other way we decide to present, whether it's paper folders or little frames.
Could I just weigh in, please?
Yes.
It's Mary Ann. I'm just speaking as a retired county employee. There is an employee or a county printing department under one of the, I forget which arm it's in, but Tori will know. And certificates of appreciation are done a lot, like by the board and department directors. And often the county print shop has, or at least they used to have, really nice paper, even has county logos on it. And they have kind of like the folders that you're talking about. And some people want a frame and they can choose their own frame that might go with their own office or something. And some people use a notebook or a scrapbook that they keep certificates in. And so my thought would be maybe Tori could be kind to check with the county print office if we go ahead with this, which I hope we do. And we could, maybe you can get a refund on your nice paper, Kathy, if they do it. And if they don't do it, then let's go ahead and reimburse you. But maybe we could look at that other resource first.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. I have not used any of the paper, and I have the receipt right there with it. So
perfect.
I could get that reimbursed. But I do think that we need to give a nicer certificate than the two that I have, and not just hand them a piece of paper. But
yeah, I've been fortunate enough to get and to give certificates in the past life there, working for the county, and they can do a really nice job.
Okay, so maybe Tori, you can investigate that, and I won't lose my receipt.
Yeah, no, don't lose your receipt. I do know that, excuse me, Reaper Graphics, who used to do all of that, is no longer. We have to go through accent printing, which the county has, behavioral health has a, I guess, purchase order or whatnot with them. But it's been a couple of years. The Reaper Graphics shut down that portion. And so we're actually, yeah, it is a bummer because they had really wonderful things. So it's my understanding that everything comes through Accent, which is a local printing place here in town.
Okay, so if you could investigate that, and if we find out if I should make up the certificate like I have been, or if they would want to type it out and, just me give them information. So maybe, I know that I did send everybody a list of possible places and people to appreciate and or visit. So maybe we should go ahead and just quickly pick somebody to appreciate this month. And then I'm thinking have people maybe prioritize, like you have the list, and send a list of 10 or 15, number them in order of who you'd want appreciated. And that way if the whole board did that, we would have, kind of a better idea of nobody would be left out of the decisions on who to give appreciations. Bob.
On the same issue, but not prioritizing. If we indeed come up with a much nicer certificate, we might want to consider doing it retroactively, replacing what we've given out one so far. Is that right?
Two.
Okay.
And I was going to do that. I have not printed them on the paper that I have, but I would definitely want to, give, it was Sid and the Community Baptist Church Collaborative.
Oh, right. Okay. So you could hold
And
off on printing the paper that you have just acquired until we find out what printing alternatives are available. That's
yeah, and I think that they should get a better certificate than.
Right.
I mean, it's just like if they were to want to put it in a binder, like like Marianne was saying, it would be cheap because that's the paper I had. So I think that we would want to do that retroactively.
They deserve.
So, Sherry?
They deserve an upgrade.
Yeah, they do. So does anybody have a preference for who we appreciate this month? Yes, Carol.
I don't mind in which order. I'm sure there's a lot of very deserving people, but I'd like to put Erica Chloe on the list from St. Joseph's. Yeah.
Yeah, did you get the list?
I don't know that I got it.
It was emailed.
I'll go back and look.
Yeah, we'll have to resend it. So Erica is a good thought. Anybody else have suggestions?
Well, she certainly sparkles. I think that would be a good suggestion, but I don't remember seeing the whole list either. So I'm glad it's going to be resent. Thank you.
Somehow I don't either.
Yeah, I don't think I got it.
Okay.
I don't remember seeing the list.
Sherry?
Yeah, I would support Erica at this point. She's been involved for a number of years now in wearing different hats, and really contributed to what we have now in terms of our law enforcement and our community relationship.
And she's also co-chair of the QIC committee.
Good.
So what I would like to ask everybody to do is Tori, if you can resend the list, and if everybody could prioritize it. I'm thinking that maybe we should go back and forth between individuals and organizations. I think that definitely the peer centers should be acknowledged, and those should have on those, I don't know, it may be that we give out multiple certificates because there are more than one center. And even, if we did the two Seans and Michael out in Guerneville and the new person in Petaluma, I mean, then do we also acknowledge Christy at West County because she's, in charge of that program, or West County itself. So, I mean, that one may be multiple certificates. So,
Yeah, because there's also Kate Roberge.
yeah. So so the list that I did it just on I just made a chart, and I would also appreciate people adding names that they think of, and Tori is going to work on putting it into a Excel so that it's easier to expand and etc. So do we want to just do Erica this month then? Is that
we did
acceptable?
give the peer centers, or the peers in general, got a what they called a gold resolution from the Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
So that just happened relatively recently. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, so, and that would, Sherry?
Yeah, in your idea of going person, organization, it would be right to do a person this go around.
Okay, so if there are no objections, we will do Erica this month, and then next month we'll be looking at an organization.
Kathy,
Okay.
I resent out the list, so if everybody could check in their email for it, and then let me know if you want additions and whatnot, so I can keep working on the spreadsheet.
Okay, and thank you so much for working on that spreadsheet. I probably could figure it out, but I don't feel like learning how to do it right now. Okay, so I'm looking at the agenda now. So we do have 3,275. I'm sure that there's some cost to getting the other things printed out anyway. So that's a cost that we would need to approve, even if it's through the county. And we will be paying Dr. Dominguez for this month's. So recruitment and retention of mental health board members is next on the list. There is one vacancy officially in District 4, and we got an email from Fran Adams that she is stepping down, and she has already emailed her supervisor. So that gives us a vacancy in District 3. So, Sherry?
And I am also stepping down after this month.
Okay, so that will give us, is that right? That is Fran in District
2?
3 or 2?
2. She's
Okay.
She's
Petaluma.
David Rabbit. Yeah.
So we have now vacancies in 2, 4, and if Sherry leaves, which will be, we'll miss you greatly, Sherry.
Sherry, you're the reason I was inspired to join.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a difficult, I'm good. It's just a hard decision. But
and we don't want you to disappear.
No, I won't. I definitely won't.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, but I don't know that you're officially our representative, but I think that you're more a family member representative on CIT, so I think that would be something that you could and which should continue doing.
Yeah,
if you wish.
I do wish to do that, and if that continues, hopefully that'll be in person coming up soon.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. Yeah, definitely. Yes, I am a family member on that. I am on the family panel.
Okay.
That training.
Who did we lose in North County?
Shannon.
Pardon me?
Shannon.
Shannon.
Oh,
Yeah, her elderly mother is ill and she's taking care of her. And then she fell and broke her wrist and was having surgery and it just got too
oh,
much.
Jesus.
So
Wow.
there's those 3 openings then. Sorry, we're gonna miss you, Sherry, but so we should really look at we always have trouble finding peers and 2 people that are leaving or family members. So we should look in that realm for people and encourage that. Carol, you made up a nice flyer. Maybe you could amend it to.
I'd be happy to do that. And I'm thinking for family members, I know Mary Frances would be a good person to do outreach through NAMI.
Good idea.
So, yeah, so we could send the flyers through
Or
her
even
and
Buckaloo, yeah.
I did outreach to both of those people too.
Okay. And yeah, so if you make up that flyer that can go to NAMI and to the Christie for the peer centers and maybe make it just general enough that it can go to
Anyway.
Yeah, anywhere. That would be perfect.
Kathy,
Thank you, Carol.
Kathy,
Will
one
do.
question. Would Mary Frances be eligible or be appointed in the district? I don't know where she lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think so because NAMI does get some funding that could be investigated.
Because she's been great. I know Carol feels the same
Yeah, she
way
truly has.
with the jail stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
very impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
'cause
the issue of conflict, making decisions that affect the potential funding of your own agency.
Yeah. So
That's
is
Yeah.
that not a problem with Becky? I mean, I love Becky and I don't want to kind of jeopardize her position, but is that not the same issue with Becky and SOS? She's the executive director there.
Does SOS get
I don't
funding
know.
from the county?
Bill,
I
is
don't
SOS a contracted agency for the county?
Yeah,
are?
she
Okay.
is. They are.
Yeah, they
And that
support
is
the mobile support team. They work with the mobile support team.
Right.
I
so
think,
they
excuse me, but I think it's the person on the board, if they have anything, they personally have anything to do with decision-making around funding. I think that's how we separated it out in the past. I'm not, I have a fuzzy brain. I can't remember, but I'm thinking that's how, because we did run into that with clients not being able to be on the board once they were working in some capacity in the
yeah, we'll have to
Well,
investigate that. I know that clients are separated out into a different category
yeah,
than contractors. And if
Yeah.
Becky is in charge of SOS and they're getting funding, then that may not fly.
Can
We may
they
have
not
to.
can they not just recuse themselves from decision making when it comes to that kind of issue, or not? They just can't serve. Because I think Mary Frances would very much like to serve on the board.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that I think that they may just not be able to serve. I think that's something we have to investigate.
Okay.
So let me put that down. Yeah, I hadn't realized that SOS was actually receiving funds.
Teresa may have some information on that for you, Kathy, from the COM board.
Yeah, and that, so I can check with her and Bill, if you have any knowledge about that, then let me know, but I'll check with the COM board. Okay. So anything else about recruitment and retention?
Just a question. If somebody, are family members included in the peer category? Because I know that there was a special decision made to allow for working peers to be able to serve on mental health boards. So if Buckaloo or NAMI or Voices have volunteers working for them, or even stipended volunteers, would they be eligible? So they're not staff and they're not in budget decision-making positions, but frontline service positions. Would they be eligible?
Okay, so we have investigating to do. I'll check with Teresa. I'll look for applicable laws, and Bill, maybe you can check that out too. Okay. Any other questions about that? Okay, the minutes of February and March will be, well, this is March coming up. The minutes of February will be approved at the March meeting. And you have the draft minutes. Okay, special topic presentation, April. That would be if it's North County, so if Bob and Peter could check with North County people, would you be able to do that, Bob?
Yeah, I'll pursue that. See what agencies there are. I think that's often not so easy to identify, but I might check also with Becky Ennis because of her experiences up in Cloverdale. So she has a good network of folks up that way.
Okay, and
Alliance Medical, maybe.
Yeah, they're in basically Healdsburg and Windsor.
okay. And
mobile support team again.
Yeah, and your supervisor, invite him.
James,
it was nice having him last year.
James Goya.
Right.
And you could check in with Peter McElweeny too. He'll probably have some ideas maybe.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Bill, do you want to give your report? And the question has come up a couple times now about drug and alcohol and what is the mental health board's role. So that's on the agenda as well. So maybe you could address that.
But, excuse me, so I checked in about that. And apparently at some point before I got here, the decision was made to disband the Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board. I don't,
yeah.
The explanation I was given was that it wasn't required, but I don't have it. No one here has any more context than that. So
yeah, it was one of those not mandated things that, you know.
Yeah, and I don't believe there is a mandate that you have one. So currently, Sonoma County does not have a drug and alcohol advisory board.
Some counties apparently have merged the two, and the mental health board is more a behavioral health board and addresses issues in both areas.
Mm-hmm.
So the question has come up, multiple times whether or not we should do that. And if that would be helpful, it probably would help, the drug and alcohol section to have some focus on it. But no official.
I assume that would be, it would be, I believe it's your prerogative to make that recommendation to the Board of Supervisors and their decision about whether or not they want to do that. They would probably ask the department for its recommendation as well. Our hope is that we are going to be expanding our SUD service system. We have some money set aside in Measure O for the support expansion. It's not enough to totally fund anything, but it's a chunk of money that's set aside for that. And we are initiating a planning process to map the current system and then outline the, for lack of a better word, ideal system that we would like if we expanded. And so we'll use the outcome of that project to inform a decision about whether or not we can, for example, join the state's ODS waiver and expand our SUD system. I mean, I hope that's what we do. I just can't commit to that because I don't know what the budget implications of that are and, what the county's response would be to, creating more services and systems. I'm assuming it would be supportive, but we need to go through that process.
Okay. Did you have anything else that you were planning on letting us know?
The work right now that is our focus is getting some new managers and administration on board. So we have made an offer to a candidate for the CSU for the client care manager position. So she's now in background, and we hope to have a date that she's starting. And so that will, we're looking forward to that because CSU needs a manager, and it's going to free Sid McCauley up to go back to her section manager role. And then you probably saw the email sent earlier. We created the 2 section manager positions and have gone through the process and selected our candidate. So Karen Salidi has been offered and accepted the Youth and Family Service section manager position. So she transitions directly into that position because we're able to do that. And then Wendy Wheelwright has been selected as for the Adult Services section manager position. So this position splits Sid McCauley's responsibilities. So Sid McCauley has been responsible for adult services, forensics, and crisis. It splits her out now to only be forensic and crisis and moves the other adult services under Wendy Wheelwright. Wendy's currently assigned to the vaccine DOC and holds a role in our CLOPI program, which has a number of mandates for reporting to the state. So we have to plan for her transition by taking those other duties into account. So we don't have a date yet by which she'll fully make that transition. And then we go into interviews next week for a position that we're going to call, it'll have its responsibility will be for workforce education and training, but also for equity issues. So we want to have a manager who leads our efforts to improve our performance in the area of race, ethnic, gender, sexual identity, equity. And this position is going to play that role. And so we have interviews next week. And so, we can expect someone in that position in the next, 4 to 8 weeks.
Would it be possible to get, at some appropriate time, a list of the people and their responsibilities, like an org chart? It seems that there's been some...
I can send you we're right in the middle of revising our org chart to show the changes I just described, but we can send out that org chart relatively soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and for the board's information, Mary Ann Swanson did serve on the interview committee for the adult services, right? And
for both.
For both.
For both.
And Beth,
we interviewed everyone together, so yeah.
Okay, so for youth and family services and the adult services, and then Betsy is on the interview panel for the wet and equity issues. So there is board participation for just for the information for other people.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Bill?
I do. I just want to thank you, Bill, for the information regarding the drug and alcohol services. That's near and dear to my heart. There are many of us family members who deal with both issues. And I feel like it's really it's important for the membership of this board to be aware of what services are available and places to put on the visit site for the site visit site and all of that. As an outgoing voice, I just thank you for we've been waiting a while for this to come about. Remembering how far back the drug and alcohol advisory board was disbanded and all of those times. So we've been waiting a long time to have some information about how we were going to better be aware and serve those needs. Thanks.
Yes, drug and alcohol and mental health are definitely entwined. Yeah. And the fact that Bill is in charge of both of them means that that's acknowledged on some level, but
yeah,
perhaps not.
Thanks, and I'm
Go
sorry.
Ahead.
I would also say that the years that I was attending COM board meetings and the planning council meetings, several counties in the state have merged both of those needs and together. And I just feel like it's important for us to do the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for Bill?
Yeah, I had a question about the substance use disorders kind of community mapping and decision making about what happens moving forward. Do you see potentially an opportunity here for including peer support specialists, drug and alcohol backgrounds as being incorporated into that team of care?
It should. I mean, the peer, the tradition of peer support is deeper in SUD than it is in mental health, so it certainly should. And the SUD system has adapted for that by creating certifications for individuals that are, a step short of licensing, and those folks function in the SUD system. What I don't know, because we haven't, I have not delved into the details of it, is how the ODS waiver allows you to bill for those services. So that'll be part of this planning process, is developing an understanding of that. And I mean, I assume so, but because like I say, the SUD system has the certifications.
Right. That they have existing certifications in place already. And just to keep in mind that the SB 803 hopefully will be kicking in the not too distant future, that may give some flexibility of people being able to move from one system to the other. you know, my hope is, and I am looking for diversification of funding for paid peer positions. And that was my second question is, could you give us, if not today, but in the next little while, a overview of where we are with the current budget, and I'm assuming planning process for the next year's budget. So if we can have a detailed picture of when decisions will be made and when there is opportunity for input. And as you know, my concern is still very much for the non-mandated services that there does not seem to be allocated funds for. And how do we maintain a transparent process and use the information that we get from that process to do things differently in the future? So obviously my passion is peer support services, but I'm sure that it's, you know, the process of balancing the budget is important. And but I think we need to also learn from that process and perhaps find a new way of doing the business moving forward. So yeah, so really, could you give us details on where we are? And I think the concern is with COVID, has that impacted the MSHA funding, and what impact will that have on the current budget as it stands moving forward? Do you have any anticipated decisions that you're going to have to make?
So, I mean, I can tell you in general, COVID has a negative impact on our budget. So our placement rates and hospitalization rates have gone up, and our expenditures have gone up. It's consistent with several other counties that have experienced the same thing. And then, yes, I will share with you the budget planning documents as soon as I have them to share. Our process is that we develop them internally with the CAO's office and give them to the board, and the board decides when it's, you know, when it's released for public discussion.
So, when will be the next time that we have an opportunity to look at the budget?
I can't give you the date right now because I don't have that yet from the board. I can tell you that we're in the stage of, we go through multiple rounds internally of building a budget proposal. And again, it's a budget proposal that has to be designed to balance on our own. We work with the department works with the CAO's office to develop that, and then we present it to the board. So we're in those planning rounds. And what I don't know yet is when we'll hand it to the board and when the board will say, okay, but now let's start the budget process. And I'll let you know as soon as I know. I just don't have a date yet.
Okay, so I have a question. Is this different to how it was last year? Because the concern is that because of the transparency, people were more aware of the process. My concern is that we do not go backwards to a closed door process.
Yeah, no, it's the same transparency process. Last year, we didn't have as many public discussions because the budget came right at COVID, and I know Kathy at that time talked about her disappointment that there wasn't as much open discussion of it. So this year we're used to crisis, so we will. I expect to have the same process we've had. That said, it's not my process, but everything I see is that we're doing this in a way that everyone's going to get the first budget proposal when the board's ready to release it, and then the discussions will ensue.
Bill, is there any anticipation that there'd be some benefit for the county if the legislation passes in the House and Senate? Because they have quite a bit of money for the states.
Yeah, there's a general there's a general idea that the federal package will bring state and local monies. That's helpful, but it's nothing specific yet.
Yes.
It's also, if you look at the current state budget, the state is surprised by how the budget is not as bad as they had planned. And so, for example, one of the proposals is the release of $750 million to that counties will apply for, probably through a competitive process, to fund facilities to support the mental health system. So this would be, you know, things like transitional housing or crisis residential or whatever you need. So they set aside a large amount of money for that. And so far that's in the budget process at the state level.
Thank you.
Sherry?
So a direct question, sorry, can I,
Go ahead.
should I wait?
No, go ahead.
I don't know. Sherry said, go ahead, Carol.
Okay, so are the peer services in danger this year or not?
I don't know how to answer that question yet because I'm not in a position to report out from the board.
So I'll take that as we need to continue our advocacy.
Okay. Were you on the phone yesterday to the board? Did you comment?
I did. Yes, I did.
And the reason I know is I was getting texts from people. What's going on, Bill? What are you telling people? What are you?
Right. I know that you have a job to do, and I appreciate that you are between a rock and a hard place. So I just want to let you know that we know that. But
yeah, no, and then as you know from our discussions, everybody's position in the tone is we don't want to cut peer services, and we don't want to keep going through the kind of process we've gone through because it's just it feels like an unfortunate Groundhog's Day. So we're trying to figure out how to, in a transparent process, take care of peer services. We just, you know, those things need to be problem solved, and we can't talk about them until they're problem solved. But I do feel comfortable sharing. No one wants to continue this. The CAO, the board, the department. We've learned through 2 rounds of transparency that if we just keep going through the same process over and over again, it becomes destructive. So
right.
We don't want to do that. So we're looking for different ways of having a transparent process.
Right. Well, I just want to put it out there, and then I'll be quiet. I know this is my soapbox. I have found some credible resources that are saying that the hiring of peers and integration into all levels of service give you a 5-to-1 return on investment. Is there not a way to get the people in charge of balancing the budget and at the higher level across all systems to look at potentially the return on investment? Obviously, that's a long-term view, but it has been used quite successfully in, what do they call them? Shared accountability systems, where they have an MOU where an actuary looks at the return on investment, and there's an MOU drawn up to give back funds according to the amount of money that was saved using a particular service. In this case, it was community health workers, but I can see that it may work with peer support services.
Yeah.
Okay, that's me. That's the end.
Yeah, I think it's always important to keep putting that information out there as ongoing advocacy and education for folks. That said, you know, in a budget process, when you're dealing with the numbers we're talking about, it's difficult to make cost-saving arguments. It's not impossible, but it's difficult, right? So during the previous 2 years, we talked about budget shortfalls that were in the neighborhood of 19 to 24 million. That's a lot of money, right? So it's hard to say, you know, you get a 5-and-1 return on this because you're trying to stop the bleeding. So Measure O is very helpful. We're not in that position anymore. but Measure O doesn't solve the problem. So we're just trying to figure out how to design the budget with Measure O, COVID, and continuing a transparent process. So all of that's underway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sherry? You're mute. You're muted, Sherry.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
You can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So my question probably it deserves the same answer that Carol's was. You're not in a position, and I do appreciate the position you're in. But it just seems, I'm going to use the term common sense, that to be able to meet the vaccination process for all of our clients is that our nurses should be able to have the ability to do that, especially with the vaccines that are more easily stored. And it would be my hope that somewhere in the process of the public health decision-making, that ends up happening. I'm concerned about, it's a personal situation. I'm concerned about my own. My son is with me, and there are other clients who live with their families or in their own apartments, that they don't slip through the cracks because they're not in a group housing situation. So that's.
Yeah, we don't have any input on how the vaccines come to us, and at this point they're going to be distributed through Blue Cross. I will tell you that at the Behavioral Health Directors Association, the issue of arguing that our folks move up the tiers into the with other individuals with disabilities is a strong area of focus, because early information shows that experiencing a severe mental illness puts you at very high risk relative to COVID, one of the highest risk factors. So we, our advocates, the association we belong to, are at the state level planning meetings, making that case regularly.
Thank you. That was going to be my next question. If mental health clients were, or patients were involved in, or are included in that disability classification.
Yeah.
Okay. So time will tell. Wait and see. Thanks. Again, Bill, I appreciate the place you're in.
Oh yeah, it's fine. I don't mind talking about this at all. It's important.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, so I don't, I can't see everybody, but I think that was everybody who had questions. Okay. Okay, thank you, Bill, for your information, your willingness to put up with our many questions.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys. It is a very active board. It's a pleasure working with you all. I feel like there's a supportive group in the community behind us or holding us up, and you guys are it, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is discussion on inviting Board of Supervisors representatives to meetings, and the presentation to the Board of Supervisors now for the 1920 Mental Health Board report is March 16th, and Becky is still on board for doing that. And Bob is going to invite Supervisor Gore in April. So I think that is, unless somebody really wants to discuss that more, that is all we need to talk about on that for now. Item 7 with COM Board and ad hoc committees.
Bob has something.
Yes, Bob. You're muted.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Backing up a moment, as far as what invitations will be extended, such as to Supervisor Gore, I'm thinking that perhaps the best way to pose the invitation would be to have those people who are responding, including Gore's office, respond to Tori that they will or will not be attending, and then she can ensure that they have the link to attend the meeting. Otherwise, I'm not sure of any better way. Would Tori and Kathy, do you think that's the best procedure?
I think that they should let her know so that she can put them on as a panelist.
Okay.
Sure, I
You
can
agree,
do that.
Tori?
I do send out, I do send out the agendas, which have the links to the meetings to the board members as well as their support staff. And so, yeah, if they respond to me, I will definitely keep an eye out for them, which I do watch the participants to see if they pop in or whatnot.
Okay. The other thing, of course, would be those agencies, if for next month, the North County entities who might want to participate. You want us to funnel it through you so that they can be directly notified if they're going to attend?
Yes, if you let me know, then I'll be aware when they come in, like what Betsy did for last month. She gave me a list of who is to look out for to promote them over to panelists, so they have access to everything. So yeah, if you let me know who's coming, I'll keep an eye out for them. And
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So, any reports on the jail services, or Pam or Comboard? I know Sherry sent a link out. I am thinking that if Sherry is stepping off the board, we need somebody else to be watching the Comboard activities. So if somebody wants to step up into that role, that would be great, and you can think about it. Anything that, well, on sites to visit, I've made just just from my head, I made that list that has now been emailed to you, but I'm not sure how we're going to actually go about setting up the visits. Should we go through you, Bob Hale, to set them up, or how do we go about that?
Well, there's several parts. First, identify what facilities or services we want to site visit. And that should be, I think, in consultation with Bill. That could be helpful to him and ourselves. I visited 2 facilities last year, and that was the Crisis Stabilization Unit in Parker Hill. So one was a contracted agency and the other was a behavioral health division agency. So one of the questions is, do we want to focus on those that are contracted with the county, or do we want to focus on county type facilities, or a combination? I don't know. Bill, do you have any thoughts? What could be helpful to you?
So the county doesn't operate many facilities. So if the visits are facility focused, it's likely going to be contracts. And the areas for you to consider are, we have if you visited Parker Hill and Crisis Stabilization last year, Crisis Residential, which is also, both facilities are operated by Progress Foundation, are a key part of our crisis continuum. And they experience somewhat the same dynamic the CSU does, which is sometimes folks get stuck there when they're ready to go, but we don't have a place to send them. If they're not ready to move into independent living. So one of the areas of focus for Measure O is developing some transitional housing. So I'm going to advocate for us creating more step downs from crisis residential. So you may have interest in crisis residential because you looked at two of the related programs in that continuum, and it'll be an area of focus moving forward. After that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Bill, is Progress Sonoma and Harstead House, they're both operated by different agencies?
No, no, those are let's see. So that's operated by Progress Foundation.
Both Progress Sonoma and Harstead House.
Yeah.
One agency.
Yeah.
Okay.
Two facilities.
Okay.
Is Progress Sonoma the one on Montgomery?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
And then CSN, operates a continuum of programs. So, they're because of and they operate programs that are, both supported by us and supported by CDC and other HUD funding. So because they're a significant part of our continuum, that may also be an area of interest for you, and, maybe looking at multiple programs from that agency to try to tie those things together might be an interesting review for you as well.
Bill, is CSN the name of the agency, or is that?
Yeah, Community Support Network. And they operate, 4 or 5 different programs for us, from, shelter to residential care facilities at different levels.
Okay.
Yeah, Kathy?
Yes.
It's Carol. I have a question.
Carol. Yes.
Well, actually, a question for Bill. Is there money that is in Measure O that could be used to revive the respite house? I know that a lot of work was done to purchase or rent a property that would be run by peers to provide crisis relief. And I'm not sure exactly what happened to the funding. I think at that point the fires were burning and there was no inventory that the county could afford. I think my understanding was that Progress Sonoma was going to step in and be the kind of support agency with professional staff and oversight. But I know that there were about 5 or 6 peers on the work group working towards getting a respite house. So is that a project that could be brought back to life using Measure O funding, since it is a crisis intervention and a housing option, albeit short term?
It doesn't fit easily or directly into the expenditure categories. It could probably be designed in a way that it could. So for example, if we called it transitional housing, or designed a respite peer run program that operated like that. So for example, we are proposing to use the model that was being developed for respite care in the jail diversion transitional housing project. So we're trying to keep that idea and that work alive in that area. The reason we lost the respite care is because the grant that would purchase the building required a 20-year commitment to the program, and at that point we were proposing cuts to our system, so we weren't in a position to make a 20-year commitment to a discretionary program like that.
Okay, so
just a question for Bill.
yes, Bob Hales.
What do you think of the peer run programs? Would they be like Petaluma Peer Recovery, Buckaloo? wellness and would those be?
Well, I think they would be excellent to visit. One, because I think they're very well-run programs, and creating a body of work that continues to support them would be beneficial. They've really been limping along under COVID, though, right? So they've not been open. So I'm not sure this is the year to do that. I mean, okay. You may see that differently. You may see let's talk about what they're doing when they can't really open their facilities and run them the way they do. Maybe you would see that as beneficial, but I'm just pointing out that you wouldn't be able to visit them today and talk about how they normally function.
Well, I assume that we wouldn't be able to visit any of the facilities, but we would have to depend on interacting with the manager.
Yeah, but the reporting, you wouldn't be collecting information on how they're operating.
You need information from whoever the manager is.
Yeah, I think that
I can speak a little bit to that. Just again, on a personal level, the person that works with my son has kept constant communication with him on a weekly basis by phone, and I'm very appreciative of that. So I think Bob hails that you could still set up a virtual meeting maybe with the person in charge, and maybe a couple, I don't know how they also, their family meetings are still held also on virtual like we are doing here now. So there may be a way to get some information, which is what we're all about. You're doing some fact finding actually. So there may still be a way to do that with these organizations, even though we can't on-site visit.
Yeah. This is Carol. Yeah, I know I was still the manager at the Pilima Peer Recovery Center when there was, I think it was Amy Folstich was planning on a visit. So that's a while ago. I'd like to say that the peer services are running as well as any other service under COVID. Yes, everything is telehealth. So by telephone and Zoom and et cetera, et cetera. And I think that speaking to their managers would be a very good way for people to understand how those services are being provided despite COVID. And I just totally lost that thought, so I will just shush.
Yeah, I'm just going to add quickly that living in Guerneville, and I'm somewhat aware of what's happening out here, that I know that, and from listening to Sean and Sean talking about their programs, that they are being pretty creative with their COVID responses. And out here, I know that they are actually going into the shelter, which turned into a year-round shelter because of COVID, and having groups there. So the people from the Empowerment Center are going. It might be interesting to find out what they are doing and then do a follow-up visit once they're able to actually resume in service. So I would put them on for visits. Okay, anything else on visits? The jail. Take the list that I made for potential programs that we could visit and or appreciate, and add to it and make comments on it. I know you have it now because Tori just sent it again. So,
Carol, do you want to talk about the nice meeting we had with the jail people?
Sure. Just a quick update. We did meet with Lieutenant Robert Travelstead. He's the new service oversight for services to behavioral health inmates. We also had Lieutenant Brian Cleek there, who is in charge of the building of the the new mental health jail. And we had Lieutenant Leanna Whistler, and I do believe they have filled the position that was Katie Capetto's position. So they've had some infrastructure changes, but they were very willing to work with us, and we will be looking for additional ways to continue the relationship and the conversation. I think the end result really is to truly understand, you know, what happens to people when they're incarcerated, and to look at options to prevent people going to jail in the first place, to decriminalize mental health, and then when people are released, to build in the infrastructure of support that's needed to help people get back on their feet when they leave the jail. So yeah, so that relationship is ongoing, and the question was, would WellPath still be the contractor in the new jail? And I'm assuming that that is a yes at this point until we're told otherwise.
Yeah, I think the meeting was excellent. I've always been impressed with the correctional health people, their commitment to mental health and their creativity. I think, and Carol, see what you think, but Brian Cleek, I think it'd be very informative if he would be invited to a mental health board meeting and summarize some of the plans they have for the new jail, because it's very, jail mental health. It's very impressive.
Right.
Okay.
And then the other piece that we will be working on with that work group is to try and get first person accounts from the people who have been inmates. So that would be a conversation about maybe choosing a date. Well, we'd have to collect a group of people first who will agree to do it, but perhaps a panel at a mental health board to have the lived experience perspective of what's needed to support individuals with mental health who are incarcerated. And that links in again to the potential with SB 803 passing of perhaps having trainings inside of the jail and for individuals that have successfully integrated once they leave the jail to become post-prison health workers. So, you know, with my other hat on, with my Sonoma County Peer Council hat on, I'm in conversations with JobLink to see whether that's possible, and to perhaps link in back to Santa Rosa Junior College to be able to create a certificate that people who have had lived experience of incarceration can then, you know, have the potential of work, jobs. So, but that's also a long-term discussion.
So I'm really appreciating the work that you guys are doing, and thank you for reporting on that ongoing.
And just FYI, I do go to the meetings that Bill was talking about with the diversion program. What's it, JMHPC? It's a very small program. Interfaith have created a housing unit for young adults, if I'm not mistaken, Bill. That and they are. Well, we'll see what the outcomes are, but the intention is to try and create wraparound services to people who would otherwise not have them, and hopefully prevent them from going to jail in the first place. So, yeah.
Bob Cobb.
Kathy, I need 2 minutes for an item that's a revisit that is not on the agenda. So just before we get totally out of time, I'd appreciate that.
Yes, totally out of time is a true thing that we always run into. What is your thing?
it's a revisit of a conversation we had about a Mental Health Awareness Month in May. And
Yes.
I found out what the two options for either a letter to the editor of the Press Democrat or the close to home, the short column that is also open. I found out what the parameters were, contacted the editor of that group and had his feedback as to likelihood, suggestions he had for how we might get a piece put in. The letter to the editor is limited to 200 words. The close to home is limited to 600, but we'd have more chance if we could get it to 400, 425. I can have Tori send this out. I'm wondering if I'm not available to assist on this, but if someone is interested in stepping up to help compose a letter, I think the close to home would be more effective if we can do it. We should probably get that done in the next, say, 4 to 5 weeks. So there's a couple weeks before the beginning of May, but I'll have Tori send out the information. It's a half a page for everyone to see what the parameters are.
Okay. I know there's some really good writers in this group. So if somebody doesn't step forward, I'm going to be asking. So let's see, we're looking at number 9 is confirming the scheduling of the special presentation this month. Racial disparities, anti-racism, presenter, outline and fee, discuss blocking participants that are unruly, disabling chat, and using questions and answers during the meeting. So, Tori, did you want to let us know what you're doing?
Yeah, so I did work with dogs. I did work with our ISD department, and I found that I cannot create breakout rooms so people can go. But I did, if somebody is unruly in the meeting, I can eject them and they cannot come back in. It was suggested that I close off the chat option for everybody and strictly use the question and answer, because that's not seen until it's answered and responded to. So that would protect, our meeting from anybody getting a little out of control. And that's what I had, besides reminding everybody that we're starting at 4:30, not 5. To do our regular board business and to accommodate for Dr. Dominguez. But if you would like, I can leave the chat open, but once it's there, I can't erase it, but I can eject the person from the meeting and they're not allowed back in.
Yeah, I think we should close the chat, not have any chat. That's, I think, would be my
I agree.
preference.
I thought that would be safer.
Yeah, I agree too.
The only problem is occasionally there will be some information such as a link to a resource or something of that sort that may be submitted to a chat. I understand the concerns, but I'm not sure how we would do that. We'd have to go back, have Tori send it out, I guess, to the board directly.
I urge that. Oh,
Go ahead, Marianne.
You were unmuted, Marianne. You've muted yourself.
You're okay. We hear you.
Okay. It seems like when I press unmute, it mutes me. I'm very technology disabled here today. I think that we should be very mindful to disabling the chat and anything else, given that there's some history here in the county with a disruption of one of the county meetings that was really very ugly. Bill has addressed that in the past. And I think we just need to be vigilant and hold hold the community to a high standard.
Yeah, and maybe Kathy, I'm not sure if you would be comfortable maybe having when we introduce the speaker, just maybe 2 or 3 words about etiquette. I see that the Board of Supervisors has it on their agenda now and on their website, a statement about, you know, civility, you know, and I see if I'll find it and I can post it in the chat.
Yeah. So I think that Tori, you know, I think that having the chat disabled is fine as long as there's a way for people to give questions and answers. And if they want to have a link available, they can put it into the questions and answers, and you can, you know, put it out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm gonna put a little reminder. Oh, sorry.
Are you there? Tori,
Yes,
go ahead.
I was gonna just finish. I didn't mean to cut. I was gonna put a reminder on your board cheat sheet about notifying people when the meeting starts that the chat has been disabled, but to use question and answer for any type of, that way they're not squawking and.
Right, and they are, yeah, and they have not been denied the opportunity to participate. Okay.
Yeah, I've just shared the statement from the Board of Supervisors website.
Okay.
Just says commitment to civility is what they've called it.
Okay, so I can say something similar, although we really have not had a lot of participation when the public has had the opportunity to speak. So you know, I don't want to emphasize it so much that people feel the
that
need
it's been a problem, right?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
maybe
so,
save it and only use it if it's necessary.
I'll have a shortened version to remind people. Remember.
Maybe it could be as simple as let's assume best intentions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to check back. I am finding that we really do need to discuss the retreat and follow up with it. And I'm finding that every time that I think that we should be doing this, that we are running out of time. So I'm wondering if maybe we should actually have a second retreat after we've had the retreat and both presentations to come up with some sort of a statement, because right now we're down to 2 minutes and that's not enough time to address it. So does anybody have an opinion on that? Would that be acceptable? I guess I'm asking if we spent maybe
good idea.
2 hours somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good idea. Good idea.
Can I chime in really quick? I know that we're out of time, but really quickly, the Equity in Education Initiative has come up with an equity pledge. So we've drafted an equity pledge that with many community champions. I wonder if that's something maybe the board can contemplate in committing to and signing. I can send it over to you, the final draft, and see if we can consider it.
Okay, so I think that that's something that we can look at. I think that we need to actually commit some time. I don't think it has to be a long time, but I think it has to be a couple hours. So I would say, you know, a retreat type thing, a couple hours maybe in April or May. Does that sound like something that you could commit to planning on? Let me just say, is there anybody that would object to that? Okay, I'm not seeing any objections, so I'll go ahead and look for dates that people are available and plan on doing that sometime toward the end of April or in May. Okay, so I think that we have covered just about everything. We didn't talk about changing to Wednesdays, but we can do that. I mean, that doesn't have to happen now since it is noon. So I don't think the executive meetings have the same requirement for asking people to motion to adjourn. Right, Tori? Do I have to ask for that? No. Okay, so we're done.
I don't think so.